DigiPals! In a few seconds, the doors will open for the best movie of all time, the Digimon movie!
Hey, come closer. Let me share with you a juicy little secret. I liked Digimon more than Pokemon when I was younger. Chalk it up to enjoying the idea of my monster talking to me or the fact that I owned Digimon World 1 first. I don't know, but I was a Digimon kid, albeit only for a short while as the staying power of Pokemon was more lasting. But even now, I still love both, although Pokemon clearly won as I'm standing here with a Pokemon YouTube channel after all. But it's been swirling around in my ape brain for a while now, turning Digimon into Pokemon. And maybe one day vice versa, once I learn how to do Digimon style. I've tried it to varying degrees of success, but for now let's turn some Digimon into Pokemon. Digimon style is much more, I want to say, edgy than Pokemon, with a lot of designs being more complicated, monstrous, and with more blades and guns and pants. Just a whole lot of pant. So to translate it into Pokemon will be interesting to say the least. But I feel like I did a decent job. Now I've randomized what Digimon I did, so we have a very mixed bag of Digimon here, but I feel like the randomizer gave me a bit of a break with the first one. And hey, before we start, don't forget to like the vid if you enjoyed it, and comment down below what your favourite Digimon is, and what you thought of the video. And send this to other Digimon lovers so they can tell me how much I ruined their faves. Anyway, let's begin. I absolutely slept on Alecmon when I was younger. For me, if it wasn't from the main group, I didn't really care about it. But nowadays, Alecmon is just awesome. It's a weird reptile bird with electricity and mammal parts. It makes absolutely zero sense, and I actually dig it so hard. And I feel like it'd make a great Pikachu replacement for translating it into a Pokemon. Though I opted to go this almost Bulbasaur design. I mean, the initial sketch almost looks like Bulbasaur with rabbit ears. I really just smoothed out most of the design, going for simpler shapes to help convey that Pokemon design. Super huggable looking. I imagine it being this short-furred little creature with a weird feathery tail anyway. To colour it, I desaturated the colours a fair amount because if there's one thing Alecmon does, it's hurt my eyes with the colours. Also 10 non-existent points to anyone who knows what the shiny is referenced to. I had to fiddle with the eyes in the end, just a bit. They were kind of spaced out, and it led to some almost alien looks to it. But I got there in the end. Here's your fluffy, not-so-digital Alecmon stand-in, Rookalek. Rookalek, the electric Pokemon, an electric type. Rookalek's kind personality and cheeky prank-pulling nature has led it to be a popular choice for starting trainers who want something a bit different from the usual trio. Its tail contains the ability to store electricity. The higher up and more fanned out the tail, the more powerful the blast of electricity Rookalek can unleash. Rookalek are found to rival Pikachu and can be seen fighting them for territory. Due to both of their abilities to absorb electricity, they resort to acts of physical battles instead. Rookalek's abilities are Lightning Rod and Static. My next random Digimon was Zushaomon. I'm very bad at pronouncing this one, I apologize. The funny thing about this one is that no matter how hard I tried, I could only see this one being legendary. I mean, it's got such legendary energy because it's probably based off a legendary myth. And look, it has its own beads of ruin. We have a few permutations already of elemental birds. I mean, we have 6 of them just from the Cantonian birds in their Galarian forms. So for Finju, I wanted to keep the general shape and I guess complexity for it, seeing as legendaries usually have the complexity anyway. And just to keep it more of a smoother and less complex shape design. I got a bit of reference from Galarian Zapdos and Moltres, kind of a combination of the two. I can imagine this being the box legendary for the red version of the game. The colours are actually really nice to translate into a legendary, and adding a little burning fire energy emerging from the mouth really solidifies this spicy chicken. Finju, the Phoenix Pokemon, a fire and flying type. A legendary Pokemon that protects its sacred shrines that line the mountaintops of where it lives. It sticks to the skies, hiding in clouds till an enemy appears and unleashes scorching rays of fire. The beads that float weightlessly on its neck are incredibly hot, and Finju will send them at enemies and even encase enemies in them, causing the enemy to be roasted. Despite its rather aggressive nature, it does care greatly for those who protect and maintain the shrines, even going as far to check up on and provide aid to caretakers who are sick. Finge's ability is Beads of Ruin. Rolling Sanglumon was an interesting one because it almost could be a Pokemon itself. Knife Puppy Vampire. I'm sure the concept is deeper than that, but reading its Wikimon entry was a trip. Those weird leg parts were the real problem and had to be forcibly removed from the premises. As you can see, I used Lycanroc Dusk form as inspiration because puppies in unison, but Sanglobo is an evil vampiric version of it. Instead of the eyes being blocked by wings, the eyes sit upon the wings in the Pokemon version. I think a Pokemon needs the eyes a bit more to show a more friendlier personality, even if it's supposed to be a scary Pokemon. Everything about the Pokemon has to be sharp, the blades on the legs, the claws, even the teeth. I chose Steel and Dark type here, Steel for the obvious sharp blades it has going on, and the Dark type as this thing is Digimon lore, drinks the blood of its enemies and just destroys them. That's pretty dark to me. It has an almost husky-like energy to it, like I feel like I want to give it the good pats, even at danger of slicing my hand off. Sanglobo, the Bloodsucker Pokemon, a Steel and Dark type. With hollow needle fangs, Sanglobo hunts prey at night, biting down and draining their prey of blood. The larger the prey, the more excited Sanglobo gets. Their bodies are adapted to be able to move silently and stealthily at night, with their coat blending into the very shadows. Their claws are so sharp that even a single nick can cause extreme bleeding, which Sanglobo will use to hunt their prey endlessly. Despite all this, Sanglobo is quite a kind Pokemon, although it requires a great amount of trust to gain its loyalty. Sanglobo's abilities are sharpness and justified. Minotaurumon. That's it. I'll let you have a good long look at this thing. Notice the weird gun arm or the zipper that potentially shows that this thing may be just some kind of malformed man beneath there? Or even just, you know what, let's just stop here. This is one Digimon I just hate. The longer you look at it, the worse it gets. Turning this into a Pokemon stud with a single idea of it has to look close to Machamp. Super buff and human-like, it wasn't difficult to get the body shape down. The gun arm was going to be a challenge because Pokemon with asymmetry is rather rare when it comes to limbs, and also putting in a gun on a Pokemon is just a bit too much. But I thought it'd be a good idea to make it more of a simplified hoof-like shape, like a weird steel growth where it could do a thing like Magmortar and fire things out of it. At first I gave it sharp teeth, but you'll see later I gave it human teeth, or I guess bull teeth? More simplified than the horror that's going on in the Digimon version's mouth. Although it could have easily been fighting, I chose Steel Fairy type. It's got that big heavy steel hoof, but also it being a mythological Minotaur fairy fits it well. It definitely has a very Gen 1 feeling look to it thanks to the eyes there. All in all, I don't think this is the worst translation, and I could see it being in a game. Minobron, the Minotaur Pokemon, a Steel and Fairy type. Minobrons strangely grow a hardened metal-like hoof on their hands as they grow older. Some have one on either hand, while others have two. These heavy hooves are used for slamming punches, and can even fire pressurized blasts of air or even stones placed within. It is incredibly aggressive towards certain color wavelengths, forcing it to be thrown into a total frenzy where it can no longer perceive friend or foe. If a Minobron is incredibly scarred, it is considered dangerous and should be avoided. Minobron's abilities are Cudchew and Guts. The next one was, hey, how about I just show you? Yep, I rolled one of these Digimon. A weird combo of a cat belly dancer and I guess the god Bastet? Here's where the biggest challenge comes in, translating this from a human or humanoid to Pokemon. I mean, I sort of did it in the TF2 videos, but this even more so. I wanted to keep the general human shape again, but also keep the big baggy looking pants, legs, don't know what it really is, but here it's legs, and you know how much I love my big long arm characters, so this was a treat to do. I ended up turning the face markings from hair to the veil being a purple muzzle on the face for Bastisand, and made the head bigger to bring that Pokemon cuteness in. A lot of cat Pokemon inspo went into this, very much so Berserker though. I toned down the colours a lot with the midsection being a brown so it doesn't look too much like clothing anymore, just a hint to it. Typing was fairy and ground for pretty obvious reasons on the ground part, and I thought fairy for the kind of god connections it has with Bastet itself. Bastisand, the sand cat Pokemon, a fairy and ground type. In ancient times, Bastisand was thought to be some kind of god of cats, due to Pokemon such as Meowth and Delcatty coming in droves to meet the Pokemon. Recent research has shown that Bastisand has a special kind of charm that just attracts cat-type Pokemon. It has retractable claws on its hand and feet that cause painful scratches, but it isn't opposed to using the ground around it to cause sandstorms to obscure vision. Finding massive sandstorms in the desert can sometimes be due to Bastisand hunting other Pokemon. Bastisand's abilities are tough claws and cute charm. The final design of the video was actually one I did a bit later on, just because I enjoyed doing this so much, and I got Mephistomon, the big evil goat creature, just really horrifying looking, but with a real sick X-antibody form. This one was surprisingly easy to translate into a Pokemon, kind of a Lucario-izing of it, but with much bigger grippers. The goat face and eyes work so well for a Pokemon, it's wild. Even got tiny little baby wings for doing absolutely nothing with. I went with Dark and Fairy for this one. I know a third fairy type is kind of wild, but its connections to dark bargains and everything give it very dark and fey type energy. I could probably see this thing being like a mythical Pokemon or something that would get its own movie, a Darkrai-like Pokemon for comparison. Mephivel, the goat Pokemon, a Dark and Fairy type. If there were a truly monstrous Pokemon, Mephivel would classify for that. It is cruel and treats anything else it considers lesser with complete malice. It uses powers to hex its foes with bad luck. It has wings unable to fly and horns it doesn't use, but instead it teleports through shadows and launches globs of dark shadowy energy at its foes instead. Many people form cults around this Pokemon despite not having any true connections to darker powers, beyond being that of a powerful, dangerous Pokemon. Mephivel's abilities are pressure and defiant. So that's all the Digimon I Pokemonized. What did you think of them all? I really enjoyed this, so comment below if you want to see more of these or want to see me try and struggle to turn Pokemon into Digimon. Next video we're going back to Astara to meet some Pokemon that live by the seashore and get close to the next town and gym leader. So thanks so much for watching and I'll see you next time.